This is Cadillac Unscripted on 107.9 CDY. It's sponsored by Independent Bank. And Katy Huckle is my co-host. And Katy, we've got a special guest who has been on the program before. And the last time A Brabazon was on with us, we didn't really have to talk much.
We didn't. Like I say, we're barely going to get a word in edgewise because this woman knows what she is talking about. DA is with the USDA Forest Service. Welcome.
Thank you. It is a pleasure and an honor to be back here again. I'm very excited to talk about all the things that are new in the forest and then also go over some things to help people recreate responsibly and have a really great time on the last weekend.
Yep.
Real weekend
That's
of
right.
summer. It's
Here
a
we go.
3-day weekend. Pretty soon we're going to have cars lined up on 115 out in front of the station from their destination all the way back down towards Detroit.
Totally.
So,
And be nice to one another out there, huh?
Yes. Just know that when you're
Yes.
on the road, everyone else is dealing with the same thing that you are.
yes.
That's right.
They're not going to get to their destination any sooner than you are. Turn the radio on, have a conversation, talk about, avoid politics, but anything
Yes.
else.
You know what?
And just have some fun.
Absolutely. So tell us what's hot right now. What are you guys talking about the most?
Well, right now we have a new forest supervisor
Okay.
at the Huron-Manistee National Forest. James Simino is new. He just got in here, I think, around June or July, and he's getting his feet wet, starting to get out on the forest a little bit, look at
Okay.
the lay of the land, and pretty soon maybe I can actually get him to come on to the station and talk about what his vision is for our national forest. It's very exciting to have him on board, and then we have some other new leaders in the forest leadership team. We have Jeff Belair moving into the natural resource staff officer position. Kim Walton is operations and oversees the engineering program. And then also Heather Jameson is our forest engineer. She moved into a position from a lower position. And then we also have Kevin Reese, the Forest Fire Management Officer, and his deputy, Ben Wagner. And then we also have a new fuels person, a fuels officer by the name of Brian Stearns. So we have a lot of new leadership up at the Cadillac office helping to manage the forest for our public.
Can I point out, Katy, that she rattled off all those names without any notes at all?
And their titles.
And their titles.
Incredible.
That's pretty impressive.
Thank
I know.
you.
I don't
Yeah.
think she sleeps at night. I think her brain just goes, that's what happens.
Sometimes it does. So anyway, so getting back to this last weekend of summer, we're going to have so many people out. A lot of people have been asking us some of the different rules that we have for the campgrounds, where they can camp, how to make reservations. First thing I want to say is anything that has a concessionaire at the campground, or if you go to our website and go under recreation and then look at camping, RV camping, dispersed, or campground camping, they will actually list on there whether it's a first come, first served at the site, or if you need to reserve your spot through recreation.gov. And then also we want to remind people that when you are camping at a developed site, the pad that's located there, the dirt pad that's cleaned out and framed in, that's where you put your tent, not your car.
Oh, gee. I'm serious. I'm not a real camper type. And so I wouldn't have known that.
So, and one of the other things we want to point out is that at a developed campground, you're looking at having no more than 8 people per developed site. You can have up to 2 sites. You can have 2 cars there. The first car, I believe, is $7, and the second car is $8. You'd have to check our website. I know that some of those numbers have changed over the years. But the one thing that's really important is no more than 2 tents per developed site. Because one of the reasons why we try to limit the amount that's on there is we have a lot of resource damage. And then when I talk about resource damage, I don't mean that people are going out with hammers and banging on things. But, you know, when you walk across a path a certain way or always set up your tent in the same location, that vegetation starts to not grow back.
I see.
And that also impacts the wildlife in the area.
Oh, sure.
So we want to make sure that when we are camping, that we are being responsible recreationalists. Now, some of the things that we can do is there are principles that we use when we are out camping, and they're called Leave No Trace Principles. And I brought some handouts to share with you guys.
Excellent.
And these are outdoor ethics that we utilize as recreationalists to make sure that we are not creating more damage or more human footprint on the landscape than is necessary. So the first one, and there's these little hand signals you use, is 1, know before you go. Plan and prepare. Make sure you know what the weather's going to be. Make sure you know where you're going to be camping, what amenities are available, how far it is. Do you register online? Do you need cash? Can you pay by check? And then also you're going to make sure that wherever you're going, do they have bear boxes, or do you hang your food? How do you store your food? Because right now, bears are looking for that extra picnic lunch. So before they
hang
can
your
go,
food.
But yes, they need food because they're going to hibernate soon, and they're going to be very hungry. So they're going to be looking for that last meal before they go den up for the rest of the winter. So 1, know before you go. 2, camp and hike on durable surfaces. This means that if there is provided, especially at dispersed sites, any place where you've seen they have been camping before and there's a designated area there, or they have posts in these dispersed sites, you stay in that area. And you don't want to go off those areas because, again, you cause damage to the environment. And sometimes, depending on the sensitivity of that environment, it does not grow back as fast. 3, pack it in, pack it out. Dispose of your waste properly. So if you need to use the bathroom, please make sure you dig a hole 6 inches deep. Do your business, cover it up. And when possible, they do have these bags that you can take to put your human waste in. There are some areas that do require you to pack out your human waste because of the sensitivity of the environment with maybe some sensitive species, plants, and animals that could be impacted by that. Plus, it's really unpleasant to be looking at white toilet paper dotting the landscape. It really makes people cringe when they go to public lands and see toilet paper, because then your mind starts to go, where else is there toilet paper? You know, do you really want to be here? 4, so when you're out, you only want to take memories. You don't want to take more than what you should have. You shouldn't be picking up rocks or pine cones or taking turtles and reptiles and amphibians, because those are poachable, and it's also a violation in the state of Michigan to be taking amphibians and reptiles off the landscape.
It's amazing to me that you even have to say that.
It's amazing that people go, oh, look, a turtle, let's keep it.
Well, I have a question. What about flowers?
Well, there's lots of flowers that are pretty common, like the rudbeckia or the black-eyed Susan, or maybe we see some coneflower. If we go around picking all the flowers on public lands, then there's nothing there for the next person to see. And those flowers also provide food for birds and other insects and animals.
And bees.
And bees. We have those pollinators really need their pollen. So we need to think about being conscientious of making sure that we only take memories and not anything else. So number 5, my personal favorite, always be careful with fire. So remember,
You should see these hand signals.
Yes.
You could be a kindergarten
we
teacher.
really need to have a webcam here today.
Please.
Because DA is we're giving all the hand signals here.
She is en fuego. See what I did there? Okay, we want to hear about
Fire.
the fire.
Okay, so again, Smokey Bear reminds us only you can prevent wildfires. But it's not just preventing wildfires. It's also making sure that we're responsible with fire. If we create a fire ring with stones, we need to make sure that we are moving those stones back.
Yes.
So we're leaving the place as if no one's ever been there. Now think about this. When you were young and you needed $5 and you went into your mom's wallet, you need to make sure you left no trace because mom would know. Well, somebody was in my wallet because all this stuff's pulled out. But if you were good at retrieving that $5, you left no trace of your evidence that you were through mom's wallet.
She's met my children.
Same thing. You need to leave no trace, like no one's been there. So you want to make sure that if there's Any charcoal left over, that's all broken up and scattered. It has to be cold before you scatter it. If you have white ash in your fire pit, chances are that fire's still hot. So you remember, you pour your water on, you stir, you pour some more, and then you use the back of your hand to feel over top. And it should be to the point where you can actually touch it. But if you were to go into a campground, you see a lot of smoldering campfires. People are down at the beach, or they're out at the river, or they're on the lake, and they think because it's in a ring, it's fine. Ooh, sorry. But what if we have a wind event or a storm comes in and knocks a tree over and it falls across that fire pit? Chances are it's still hot enough that it could ignite a fire. So we need to be really conscientious and careful with fire. Fire is something that doesn't only leave scars on the landscape, but it can leave scars within our own psyches and on our bodies. So we need to be making sure that we are extra careful.
Do you find at this time of the year that, I don't want to use the word sloppy, that's too harsh, but do you find that people are a little bit too casual because they've been camping all summer?
I think people become complacent.
Okay.
They become, oh, nothing happened so far, nothing will happen again. Oh, it's not hot, there's no flame. And it's not the flame that starts the fire. The flame carries the fire. It's the heat. Okay. So even the coals that remain hot, it's really important. Plus, in the morning, after we've had our big campfire and there's all this ash, and the kids are up, and we're busy, especially with small kids, we're busy trying to get breakfast ready, get things packed to go do our activities for the day, and the kids are usually left unattended. And where do they go to play? They go to play in what they would view as a giant sandbox, which would be the fire pit. And children between the ages of 3 and 13 are the most prone to burn injuries the morning after a campfire because they're playing around in the ashes. So again, really, really important that you drown, stir, and feel. If it's too warm to touch, it's too warm to leave.
Okay.
So cool your coals.
Good.
Right? Number 6 of leave no trace. We are trying to respect wildlife. Okay, so it's our 6 little fingers here. Respect wildlife. Okay. Again, don't bring home the turtles or the snakes. And we want to make sure we are not feeding the wildlife. People food is not good for wildlife. We should not be leaving out sardines for the raccoons. We should not be leaving peanuts out for the chipmunks. We should not acclimate those animals to being hand-fed either. Okay. Because not only does that endanger people, but it now risks and endangers the animal because they know, oh, people have food. I can get food from that person. Mm-hmm. And not everybody is the same at a campground. So if you want to protect your public lands, stop feeding the wildlife. And 7, this is my personal favorite. We need to be considerate to other people out there. So considerate is number 7. We are peaceful to everybody, and we are also respectful that everybody else uses this public land too. So when we're hiking, instead of listening to a boombox, show my age, on our shoulder, we start putting in our...
It just doesn't have the same magic with a phone, does it?
No, it doesn't. Or with AirPods,
I still have a boombox.
Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's all right. So, again, we want to be respectful. So when we're out there at our campground, we don't want to be playing our music so loud that the people 6 miles away or down at the lake can actually hear what we're playing. We want to be, we go to the woods to enjoy the woods. Mm-hmm. We go to the woods to get away from the cell phone, the laptop, the busyness and the sounds, and then also generators. This is huge. I have heard more people complain about other campers using generators through the night, power their electrical things, maybe to keep the air conditioning running because they ran out of propane. But there are a lot of people that take generators when they're at the campgrounds.
Okay, that's ridiculous. Do they take their fur coats and their diamonds? Why? What? Really?
Yeah, doesn't compute.
No.
But see, to me, that's not camping. I'm a tent camper. My husband's a hoteler, I'm a camper,
hoteler.
He's a hoteler. But one of the things we have been able to come to agreement is if we do camping in a camper, then, and we've been looking at campers as a family too, that's something we would get into. And we talk about what amenities we want. But the bottom line is, when you're out and you have a generator out and you have that running, not only is that disturbing to other people, but wildlife, especially loons on any of the lakes, if they're nesting, they need a certain level of noise reduction in order to successfully nest. And also, it's not like for the last 200 years, loons would come to the lake or any other type of animal would come to the lake and listen to generators and they're accustomed to it. It's not like that. So we need to be respectful that our human presence in the woods impacts not only the other people out there, but wildlife, and it leaves a footprint on the land. So now we're going to talk about Tread Lightly. Tread Lightly is a program for us to travel responsibly in our four-wheel drive vehicles, whether it's a side-by-side, ATVs, or our off-road vehicles. So we need to remember that we need to avoid sensitive areas, stay on designated routes, avoid meadows, lake shores, wetlands, and streams, places where you could potentially get stuck. Because then when you get stuck, then we have to bring more vehicles in to pull you out. Plus, you may be driving over turtles or snakes, those things we told you not to take. And you're also looking at causing some damage to maybe some sensitive species that once they're disruptive or their root base is disruptive, they may actually die out. So that's something to remember. And remember, motorized vehicles aren't allowed in federally designated wilderness areas. So you're not going to be taking an ATV down to Nordhaus Dunes. That is something that we would never want you to do. Pack out all your trash. Remember, leave no trace. Number 3, pack it in, pack it out. If you brought it out to the woods, you need to pack it out of the woods. And before and after your ride, make sure you wash your vehicle down. There are a certain number of seeds. And also, if you're going through an area that may have had other boats, there may be something from the boating that gets washed up, and then you get that on your tires as well, and then you're transporting. I guess the huge thing right now is some form of slime that's in the lakes. It was discovered downstate, and it's actually affecting invertebrates. And then that, when you affect one thing in the ecosystem, then that starts to affect other things. So I had just heard about that today. I want to actually do some more research and read up on that.
It's invasive.
I found it was very, very interesting. And the DNR apparently is aware of it and monitoring it. But I would like to know more about it. So I'm actually going to start looking for articles and reading up on it, because I think it's really important to start educating people on spraying down your boat when you get it out of the water and your kayaks and your canoes, your waders. We have fishing coming up. Guess what's getting ready to run? The salmon. And we're going to see a large increase of forest users down along our rivers and streams and our lakes, trying to catch the ever elusive salmon as they're spawning. And one of the things that we see in these areas is we see an increase in litter along the banks, and we also see an increase of abandoned campfires along the rivers. So one of the things we are trying to encourage people to do is, again, pack it in, pack it out. Be conscientious that fishing line does not biodegrade. Pick up after your stuff. Try to get your lures. I know people get lures stuck on logs in the river. They get them tangled in trees. I mean, if you ever taken a kid fishing, their first cast is always one to a tree. So, and then half the time you're cutting the line and leaving it up there. So what we want to do is we want to try to minimize some of those impacts. Again, no different than taking that 5 spot out of your mom's wallet. Try to make it as if nobody's been down there fishing.
DA, question. So if you're bringing children camping and they want to bring their stuff, meaning stuff to do, bikes, dirt bikes, what's appropriate to allow the kids to bring?
So when you're in a designated campground, there is a lot of paved areas for getting in and out, especially with your RVs. Bicycles are one of the huge vehicles of transportation for kids. They're riding the small trails. And again, Rule number 7, be respectful of other people. You have to remember to share the trail. They're not the only people out there. So the kids are riding some bikes. I know these e-bikes are real new, and I think that there's some type of federal reg out now for e-bikes. I'm not certain. I would need to research that and be more skookum on that. But you're not permitted to have dirt bikes in a designated area. There are areas where if you're in a designated campground, your ATVs and your UTVs and your dirt bikes, sure, you're going to be camping at some of these places. You can have this stuff, but you cannot be riding around in the campground with them.
So skateboards, bikes, rollerblades, those things are appropriate.
They would be on any place that would be hard surfaced. So a designated campground would be. But then you also need to remember the mile per hour in a campground is 10 to 15. And it's no different than coming through your community of small children. People run out. It's not like there's stop signs. And I have seen people going the wrong way in a campground. You always go in a clockwise, or I guess depending on where you go, I think it's a counterclockwise circle when they go into the campground. But you need to be conscientious. There are small kids that are going to run out. It's not like it's a busy street where kids are looking each way. They're playing and they're enjoying themselves, and they often get complacent as to where they are, because who'd ever think of getting hit by a car in a campground because you're in the woods, right? So that there's some things that we need to be conscientious. Now, speaking of small kids, there's so many different activities you can be doing with your kids. Get them off their device. And if they are on their device, then start putting things on their device that are going to help them interact with that natural world around them. There's Merlin ID from Cornell Lab of Ornithology up in Syracuse, New York, where the kids could learn to identify the birds that they're seeing in the campground. There's Nature Watch, which is a website that has all sorts of activities that you can download and then integrate into your kids' activities for the weekend. You could do a camping bingo where the kids have to go out and do a scavenger hunt and find things. And instead of picking them up and bringing them back, which all kids love to pick up rocks and pine cones and acorns, get them to take a picture with their mobile device. Learn something. Get involved in a citizen science project. There's so many things that you can do if that kid does not want to put down that device, that you can integrate it as a learning tool, and they wouldn't even know they're learning.
That is a lot to take in.
Yes.
Oh, and I have more.
We have about 8 minutes left.
Oh my gosh. Well, I have to tell you about this really exciting product we just came out with for the Fall Color Campaign. Annually, Region 9 does this huge color campaign for fall because, let's face it, we are a very colorful state. We're almost as colorful as New England, but I think we're prettier. So we created an interactive map that if you go to our website, you click on the interactive map and it pops up a map of the forest, and there's all these little dots. And depending on the color and the shape of the dot will tell you how old the photograph is and where it was taken. And it'll show you the progression of fall.
Incredible.
This way, Katie, you could be in Alabama and want to know what the forest is looking like right now, so you know when to come home to see the best color, and you can get on there and go, oh, well, this picture was taken 2 weeks ago. Let's see what it looks like. Oh, it's still pretty green. Oh, this one was taken a week ago. Oh, look, the color's starting to come through. So now you can plan your trip to the Huron-Manistee National Forest while viewing some of the color to see where it's going to be prime by the time you get up here.
Let's back that. How do our listeners access this?
Okay, if you go to our Forest Service Facebook page today, or I guess today would be Saturday?
Yes.
You'll still be able to scroll down through our feed and see our interactive map, and then you can bookmark it, or you can go to our webpage and you can see the map right at the top. And you can click on the map, and as soon as our employees start getting out there and capturing images of what they're seeing, they'll start to populate the map.
I'm starting to think that there's a requirement to be really, really smart to work for the Forest Service. What do you think, Rich?
Or at the very least, technically
Passionate.
efficient at the very least.
I think passion is really what you need.
Yeah.
Most of the employees that we work with have a passion for what they're doing. I should say all of them. Mm-hmm. There is a passion for what we do, from our fisheries biologists and our wildlife specialists all the way down to our recreation staff. We have a passion for what we do, and that is serving the people. And the most important thing here is our lands are public. And in order for them to be maintained as public, when we put up blockades over areas that users created to do ATV riding, be respectful and leave them in, because we're trying to repair the land. Or if we've gone in and put up signs about how to camp in an area because there's been resource damage, we're asking to have that respected. Because if it becomes too badly damaged, that area can actually be closed. It not only affects the landscape for the trees and the grasses and the other plants that grow there, but it also impacts the animals that are dependent on those ecosystems.
Well, and you talked when you first came into the studio this morning about, we need to educate people about respecting the land.
Yes.
Can you speak a little bit more? Is it an issue right now?
Well, we see a lot of dumping.
Okay.
If you look at the road, I think it's 31 road that goes out past Brandybrook and Hemlock there. Mm-hmm. It was where the old dump used to be. Well, that's Forest Service land. And a lot of people tend to dump their leaf litter and their debris. Now, people think, well, what's it going to hurt? It's biodegradable. It's not like it's garbage. Well, there's a couple things. When you move your trees, your leaf clippings, your grass clippings, and anything else from your property, it tends to also take with it any diseases or bugs, or maybe an infestation you had on your property. Maybe you had oak wilt and you cut up your tree and now you took it out to the National Forest and dumped it. Not only are you creating a fuel loading issue that firefighters may potentially have to encounter if they have a fire out there, but also you're now potentially spreading the disease to the National Forest. And when you do that, then you're impacting your public lands. I know that we don't have a composting program here in Wexford County. If somebody wanted to stand up and say, hey, we should do this, we should start making a program where we can compost our yard waste and then turn around and allow people to use it back in their gardens for soil, that would be fantastic, because then that means people are not burning and they're not dumping. And it's a potential solution to a problem that's really caused a lot of other issues. And then we also get people who are out camping and are leaving their things behind. They leave their tents, they leave their equipment, they leave their dirt and debris, and they just leave.
Oh, that is really irresponsible.
It is irresponsible. So, recreate responsibly. Drown, stir, and feel. When you go out there, be safe. Make sure that you tell somebody where you're going. Mm-hmm. Know before you go. And then have a good time. Take lots of pictures, but leave the turtles and the snakes behind.
Absolutely.
How do things look in the forest as far as fire danger for this Labor Day weekend?
We are a little dry right now. I think we're sitting at moderate. You'd have to check the Great Lakes Fires and Fuels or go on to our Michigan Interagency Dispatch Center and see if what the rating is. And the ratings are going to change from location to location depending on how much moisture they had gotten recently. And also, we're starting to dry out. With fall comes a tendency to have these periods of dry and then rain, and then dry again. But our leaves and our plants are starting to die, and as they're dying, they're drying out, which creates another fuel load problem.
DA with the USDA Forest Service, thank you so much to you and your amazing team for taking care of our forests. They're such a treasure. And thank you, too, for this knowledge. I cannot believe what is in that brain. That is a lot of information.
It is a lot of information. Sometimes I forget what I know.
I want to go camping with you.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
All right, Katy, if all goes well next week on Cadillac Unscripted, our guest will be Cap Superintendent Jennifer Brown.
Can't wait to hear about our buildings. Can't wait to hear about our band and our football team. Can't wait to hear about schools full of kids interacting. So we're looking forward to talking to Jen.
Cadillac Unscripted is sponsored by Independent Bank. Join us next week, same time, same station, for more local chat on 107.9 CDY.